And we're done. Of course, the West Coast game went into a shootout, because of course it did. And extra rounds of the shootout, too, which was nice. I want to start off by talking about some of the topics that have come up in the comments today. First off, I've been doing News of the Day with the World Juniors. And honestly, that's as far as I can go with it. And in previous years, I didn't even do that. So... and the problem is this: if I was going to jump into the World Juniors, I would have to cover every team equally. I can't just be the Canadian World Junior guy. Let's look at what Team Canada did. I'd have to look at every single team, cover every single game, which means watching every single game. There were games at 6 in the morning my time at that tournament. And when the NHL is on till 10 at night, and sometimes it's 11, 11:30, keep in mind there are days where my wife doesn't really see me. Yeah, it just ends up being too much. Which is why... I used to do Southern Pro Hockey League videos here and there. I just haven't had the time. So there are definitely spaces where I can fit in news of the day items about certain leagues and certain things that happen. But that's as far as it can go. National Hockey League's where it's at. In terms of channel demographics, the number one country for views is the United States. It's close between the United States and Canada, but it's the United States. So in the U.S., I know that NHL coverage, there's parts of the U.S. where it's not what it should be, and that's part of the reason this channel exists as it does. This channel in its infancy was about, okay, I know Dallas is on a winning streak, but you wouldn't know about watching TSN or Sportsnet. Nobody's talking about this, so I started making videos talking about what nobody else was talking about. And it was usually Dallas, Carolina, Florida, Arizona. The only time you hear about Arizona was when they were getting moved, or they're going to get sold, they're going to get moved. So that's how this channel exists. That's how this channel succeeded, and that's the game plan that I have. Because it's just me. So it's just me. Yvonne definitely helps on the back end. She helps with the social media side of things. She helps a lot more in the stuff you don't see on this channel. And we will be doing a video over the next couple of days regarding our upcoming trip. We were going to do that today, but then life got in the way and there wasn't the time for it we thought there would be. So, now that that's aside, this is why we have the timestamp. So people are like, I don't want to hear this. Well, use a timestamp, then you don't have to hear it. First up, Pittsburgh. I don't jinx teams when I bump them up in the power rankings. I always hear that. The Islanders, you bumped them up and then they sucked. No, my power rankings have nothing to do with the fortunes of teams. And not only that, but it's kind of understandable Pittsburgh had a down game today. That being said, Vetrano scores from Hoffman at 2:28. That was a beautiful goal by Frankie Vetrano. And I've always known he has that talent. I've seen Noel Acciari go on a nice goal streak. Let's see if Frankie can do the same thing. Jared McCann would answer from Simone and Hornquist at 3:52. And that was the first shot that was faced by Drieger. And I thought, oh boy, this could be a high-scoring game. The Panthers were then stopped by Jari, but around the halfway mark, Connolly scores from Trocheck and Matheson at 10:44. And here we go. It's 2-1. This game it's going to be all kinds of goals. This can be crazy because there was a game over here where it looked like there was going to be all kinds of goals. And no. And I apologize to fans of these games that it's so delayed. And the reason that I did a Washington video this morning with the game that they won is because fans of Washington, that game started at 9:30 in the morning and it went till noon my time, and it's now 20 after 10. They shouldn't have to wait 10 and a half hours for a review of that game. That's part of the reason why I split them up. It's not just this is going to be a really long video. All right, so the Penguins get a power play, crossbar for the Penguins. The horn sounded, though. And that's, I think, the second time I've seen that in games over the last few weeks where whoever it is that's doing the goal horn and here we go, we did it. He's a little bit quick on the draw. But, it was a crossbar. Then there was a late Penguins power play. Vetrano and McCann had offsetting calls where they were talking to each other from the bench. Probably arguing over which player I like more. I understand. I do. Vetrano's been one of my favorites for a long time, so is McCann, so they're probably arguing over which one THG likes better. These things happen. So it's 2-1 after one. Second period, Jari denied Ekblad. And that was a tremendous save by Jari. Jari had a pretty good game. Aston Reese was then denied by Drieger. And it's like the goalies took over in that second period. Second period had the most shots of any period in the game, and the goaltenders kind of went, okay, we'll take over this game now. The Penguins had pressure at around 13 minutes. There was a power play for the Penguins. It turns into a 4-on-4. We go into the third, still 2-1. So a game that I thought was going to be really high scoring wasn't. Early push by the Panthers, trying to add a third. Tony Nato then had a break that went wide. And then the Florida Panthers at 8:52 make it 3-1. Hoffman scores from Vetrano and Stillman. So there's Frankie Vetrano with his second point of the game. He had a pretty good game. Hoffman had a pretty good game, and that's important because Hoffman has been kind of cold scoring-wise lately. Great road game by the Panthers, and I'm wondering, is Drieger the better goaltender? I know, it's a small sample size, right? But you look at Bobrovsky's stats, you look at Drieger's. Should they be giving Drieger more starts? Because Bobrovsky's stats haven't been that great. He gets pulled last night. Drieger goes in, plays pretty well. Now he goes in tonight. He plays really well. Technically, well, this afternoon. They pull the goalie with 2 minutes and 40 seconds left. And Dadonov would get the empty netter from Huberdeau at 17:32. So there you go. It's a 4-1 win for the Florida Panthers. This moves them into a playoff spot. I'm not doing the playoff update tonight. The Florida Panthers right now are ahead of the Philadelphia Flyers and have that second wild card. So right now, the Atlantic has 4 teams in the playoffs and the Metro has 4 teams in the playoffs. There you go. And for Columbus, they know just how close they are. It's 3 points out. And Florida's a team that, while they're playing relatively well, it's more that Philadelphia's fallen right off the map, out of the playoffs now. Drieger, 31 saves on 32 shots for the victory. Jari saved 31 out of 34. Your 3 stars are Hoffman, Vetrano, and McCann. No, I didn't pick the 3 stars. That wasn't me. Power plays 0 for 1 for Florida, 0 for 3 for Pittsburgh. So again, 4-on-4 goals, or 5-on-5 goals, I should say, for Florida. Shots are 11-10 in the first for the Panthers, 13 apiece in the second, and then 11-9 in the third for Florida, who outshot the Penguins 35-32. Because a cat will always beat a bird, right? Isn't that the way that works? Birds can't beat cats. I know. Up until tonight, I think it was 6 games in a row that the Florida Panthers had lost in Pittsburgh. But cats beat birds. We've talked about doing a power rankings where I rank the logos by what would eat what logo. Maybe I'll end up doing that at some point soon. It'd actually be kind of funny. All right, next up, Tampa Bay. All right, I'm gonna put this up here because Tampa fans weren't happy. Let's put this up here. You know what though? We expect it with Tampa. We do. We expect the Tampa Bay Lightning to win 7 in a row at some point during the season. Tampa is back. This game showed it. This was a very Tampa Bay Lightning type game. First period, Stevens scores from Verhaeghe and Kucherov at 2:36. At 4:44, Stamkos gets a goal. That's 2 goals on 3 shots. Now, the rest of the period is kind of controlled by the Carolina Hurricanes. The Bolts got a power play. There was a late power play for the Canes. Vasilevsky, though, held that power play off, and he was great today. The Canes way ahead in shots by the end of that first period, but Vasilevsky, he didn't care, and he frustrated them. Then in the second period, the Bolts weren't getting enough shots early, and they must have known I put that on the board because point scores from Kucherov and Stamkos at 5:19. That's 3 goals on 8 shots. So that was their third shot of the second period, and it goes in the net. And it looked like Mrazek was having a rough day, but you know what? He didn't fail to stop anything from there on. The energy in the building dropped when that third goal went in, and it's going to drop in any building when your team goes down by 3. The Bolts got a power play, and the shots were definitely in their favor. By around the halfway mark, they were ahead for the game. They had all the momentum, and it looked like it was going to be 7 in a row for the Tampa Bay Lightning, that there really wasn't any way Carolina could stop them. Mrazek stopped Cirelli on a breakaway. So like I said, Mrazek played well after that third goal went in. He didn't allow anything else. Third period, really solid road game for Tampa. But in the third period, they lost control of the shots again, and they did sit back a little bit too much. I can't let them off the hook for that. The Canes were mostly held to the outside early. The pressure showed up for the Carolina Hurricanes in close at around the 11-minute mark. And that's where they started getting to the net. The Bolts took a penalty. Carolina goes to a power play. They didn't score on it, but Svechnikov would score from Slavin and Pesce at 11:48. So the crowd got back into it with that. The momentum all on Carolina's side at that point in the game. So with a late power play, and it was a 4-minute minor, so a double minor, they did pull the goaltender down 2-1, or down 3-1, I should say, and then Gord missed the empty net. And I thought, boy howdy, we saw what Washington did down by 2 today. Could Carolina do it? And the answer was no. Carolina loses 3-1, and this was very easy for me. So for people who watched last night's power rankings, Carolina was 1 spot ahead of Tampa, so I just flipped them. That's how my power rankings work. Sometimes it's that simple. A team loses, the other team behind them wins. They switch spots. And in this case, since the one beat the other, really, really simple to say, all right, you guys are switching spots. So Tampa Bay moved up a spot today. Vasilevsky, 28 saves on 29 shots. He was fantastic. Mrazek's 23 saves on 26 shots. Like I said, after that third goal, he didn't allow anything else. The 3 stars are Vasilevsky, Stamkos, and Svechnikov. Power plays 0 for 2 for Tampa, 0 for 4 for Carolina. Shots were 13-5 in favor of Carolina in the first, 17-5 in favor of Tampa in the second, 11-4 for Carolina in the third. Final shots 29-26 in favor of the Carolina Hurricanes. Earlier today I said thumped. I realized it was the microphone from the webcam that it was using and not this microphone that it was using. So the audio wasn't as good. I said thumped. That the Bruins needed to get thumped. All right, next up. There's somebody out there's going, oh, all right. Oh, that's not what I heard. Yeah, I know what people heard. I know better. Calgary in against the Minnesota Wild today. This was a wild game. And for Minnesota fans, probably a bit disheartening. But you know what? Shootout losses are whatever, right? It's a draw, and then they have this. It's the equivalent of a free throw contest to decide, or a 3-point contest to decide an NBA game, or a home run hitting contest to decide a baseball game. I don't read a whole lot into a shootout win or a shootout loss. I treat it kind of like a tie. Now, for Calgary, this is important. Calgary, as of tonight, they're in a playoff spot. Winnipeg is out. So Winnipeg and Philadelphia both drop out of playoff spots today. They both had the day off. Early chances for the Wild. They get a power play shortly after, and Fiala would score on that power play from Parisi and Suter at 5:01. And that was their second shot. And I thought, okay, so is Riddick in for one of those nights? A bizarre deflection would then take place where Lucic goes off his skate into the net. Lucic will take that. So he gets a goal from Backlund at 9:32 that ties it up. Hey, when Lucic tells it, it'll be a breakaway, and he'll have deked the goaltender out and roofed it backhand. That's how that'll work. Foligno then scores from Eriksson Ek 34 seconds later. So Calgary, a little bit of a problem with allowing goals after they've scored, something Toronto's gone through, Montreal's gone through, Vancouver's had that point. So maybe it's a Canadian team thing, or it's just more notable when it's a Canadian team thing. The Flames had a power play that was then killed off. Dumba had a very good chance that Riddick made the stop on, and then Hamonic would score from Backlund and Gaudreau at 15 minutes and 40 seconds. Every time Calgary scored, they showed the dads up in the crowd celebrating the goals, which I think is nice. I think the dad and the mom trips are nice. The moms were on the trip with the Detroit Red Wings tonight. I believe, it was the Detroit game. And I think that's a nice thing that NHL teams do now, taking the dads and the moms out. Foligno would score from Dumba and Cunnin in the last minute of the period. So at 19:15, that makes it 3-2. And an off game for Riddick. Riddick allows 3 goals on 9 shots in that first period. He did not look good. And so going into the second, I kind of expected Talbot. It didn't happen. Jeff Ward decided, no, I'm going to have faith in my goaltender, and his goaltender rewarded him. In the second, there was a push by the Wild at 4:30. At that point, too, Foligno with an absolutely thunderous hit. Marcus Foligno with one of the nicest clean hits I saw today. Power play for the Flames. It had no shots. Dumba then had a backhander that went wide. Riddick denied Zuccarello in a play that turned into a 3-on-1 for the Minnesota Wild. The shots were 10-2 for Minnesota at 13 minutes. Like I said, the faith that he put in Riddick was rewarded in that second period. Greenway caused a scrum at the Flames net. And then in the last minute, Lucic did the same at the Minnesota end. So apparently if you poke around at a goaltender, you're going to end up causing a scrum. And that's what happened. Third period, they would tie it early, those Flames. Stone from Brody and Ryan at 1:55. And 42 seconds later, Greenway scores from Spurgeon and Suter. So at 2:37, it's a 4-3 lead for the Minnesota Wild. Zuccarello was getting under the Flames' skin during this game. He does tend to do that. Riddick then poke-checked Fiala on a breakaway. Absolutely beautiful play. I would try to recreate it with the Cats here, but I can't. I can't get them to simulate a poke check. The Flames had a power play, and they'd score on it. Mark Giordano with his first power play goal on the road since March. I think it said March 29th of last year. From Goudreau and Lindholm at 14:32. So Giordano with a big goal, that ties it up. Then there was a goal line stop on Goudreau by Stalock that I thought might be going in, and it didn't. The Flames pushed for the lead, didn't get it, so we go into overtime. The Wild got a power play in said overtime. They would not score on that. And then in a shootout, Dylan Dubé with the winner. So the Flames go into Minnesota, and they win it in a shootout 5-4. These teams will see each other again. I believe it's on Thursday. It's Wednesday or Thursday that these teams see each other again. And we'll see who wins the season series now that it's a win apiece. Riddick, 30 saves on 34 shots. He was good after the first period. Stalock, 33 saves on 37 shots. 3 stars are Dubé, Foligno, and Giordano. Shots, 14-9 Calgary in the first, 12-10 in the second in favor of Minnesota. So after it was 10-2 Minnesota, Flames did come back and put on pressure. 13-10 Flames in the third. In the overtime, Minnesota got all 3 shots. Final shots, 37-34 in favor of the Flames. And, Dubé, Foligno, Giordano is 3 stars. I like that. I like that Dubé gets the first star as the guy that got the goal in the shootout. Foligno had a very good game. This was the best game I've seen Marcus Foligno play in a while. And, of course, Giordano with the tying goal. Power plays 2 for 4 for the Flames. 1 for 2 for the Minnesota Wild. So there you go. Solid game all around. I understand Minnesota fans aren't going to be happy with the net result. But it was still a very entertaining game. Probably the most entertaining game of the night. Until it wasn't. Now, Detroit. Oh, Wings fans. Now, I thought that this was going to be the end of the slide. Early on, boy, this is a trap game. I probably should have put a magnet on there to indicate that this morning. What a fool I am. No, I'm glad I didn't. The early power play went to the Hawks. And I thought, the Hawks are going to run Detroit over. Post for the Hawks, but the fans were very excited at that point. Like, okay, it's Detroit, we got to win this. The Wings got a power play, and they scored on it. Yeah, their power play sucks, but it scored. Zadina scores from Larkin and Hronik at 3:21. Zadina continues his quiet run. He's doing well. Zadina's not going to be in the talks for Calder or anything, but he's quietly become one of their better forwards. Howard was holding early, and it was a good road period to that stage. Jimmy Howard looked pretty good, although a couple of times he was looking behind him for pucks that were in front of him or in his pads, making you kind of nervous. The Wings got another power play. They wouldn't score on it. However, Glendening would score from Nemeth and Helm at 16:53, and that makes it 2-0. The Hawks get a power play late. They would not score on their power plays tonight. It's 2-0 Detroit after one period, and I thought maybe tonight they get their 11th win. If Chicago loses this one at home against Detroit, that's going to severely impact them. That's a humiliating defeat at home. Second period, early power play for the Wings, and they wouldn't score on it. Doc and DeBrincat had a 2-on-1. It missed the net. So DeBrincat had a shot that missed. The Wings were getting chances. Helm was denied. So Helm got in close. He was denied. There was a post for Abdelkader. Yeah, imagine if Abdelkader had scored and made this 3-0. It didn't happen. Power play for the Hawks. The Wild had some really strong play around the 12-minute mark. That pressure would eventually cause a breakdown that led to Strome getting a goal from DeBrincat at 15:07. They're lethal again. And then 45 seconds later, Dylan Sakura with his first goal in the NHL. Congratulations to him. I like Sakura. I think he's a good player. Now that he's got his first goal, give him a chance to go for 2, 3, 4. I think he's got the offense. I do think it's there. Gustafsson and Murphy with the assists on that one. And it was a Wings meltdown. This was a full-on meltdown that only the Detroit Red Wings are capable of on this level. the Hawks kept going for more, and their offense was clearly in gear. But the buzzer ends that second period with it tied at 2. So all the Wings have to do is come out and have a good third period. Early in the third, Howard robbed Kubalik. So there you go. Kubalik with a good chance. Robbed by Howard. But Boqvist would get his second of the season from Taves and Keith at 8:47. And don't look now, but it's 3-2 for Chicago. And at that point I went, all right. Daly also took a puck in the ankle. He left the game, and I went, all right, that's enough. That's not going to be an upset today. Not going to happen. The Hawks pushed for another. They would end up getting another after Detroit pulls the goalie with 2 minutes and 32 seconds left. It's Kubalik into the empty net at 19:40, and the Hawks get themselves a 4-2 win. So it was a scare after the first that they overcame in the second and third. Howard saves 23 out of 26 in the loss. Crawford saved 19 out of 21 in the victory. Much needed victory for Corey Crawford. 3 stars are Sakura, Strome, and Zadina. Power plays 1 for 3 for Detroit, 0 for 3 for Chicago. Shots 12-8 Chicago in the first, 6-5 Chicago in the second, and 9-8 Chicago in the third. So they had 6 shots in the second period, and 2 of them went in the net. Rough overall night for Detroit because they played pretty well, but they still come out with the loss because that's what Detroit does. They want to stay 32nd out of 31 teams on the power rankings. That being said, I need to change the boards for that last game of the night. All right, the last game of the night. This might have been the most entertaining game, and I didn't think it would be. This one went to a shootout as well, and this is a lost point for Nashville, right? And at certain times tonight, it looked like they were going to run away with it. First period, 3 seconds in, Delorier has a fight with Watson. And I've been saying this about Delorier. I'm going to say it again here. He's an enforcer. He's a throwback. Delorier has become an 80s, 90s level enforcer where he goes out on the ice. All right, it's fighting time. And Watson danced with him, and they had their fight, and that was 3 seconds into the game. He sets the tone, and I think he does it pretty well. He can take a regular shift, but he throws down. I think this was his 10th fight of the year. In a league where we don't see very many fights, he's on pace for about 20 of them. That's about 1 every 4 games. He might be the one who makes the stats go up just a little bit in fights at the end of the year. So consider that. Saros was tested early and often. The Ducks were up in shots at the halfway point of this game 9-2. And it didn't really get any better. Henrique scores from Getzlaf and Sprong at 12:06. This is the best game I've seen Daniel Sprong play in a long time. I remember when he first came out and was playing for Pittsburgh, I saw that potential. Pittsburgh saw it too, but they got tired of waiting around for it. They felt he was too slow to develop, and they traded him for Pettersson, a trade which has been great for Pittsburgh. Anaheim, I'm pretty sure he cleared the waiver wire before the season started, and there were a lot of people who said, yeah, nope, Sprong's done. Maybe not. The Preds tried to answer, but they were stuck at 2 shots. Saros denied Getzlaf, but then, even though they didn't have enough shots, in the last minute, Watson scores from Blackwell and Trennan at 19:11. It's a 1-1 game. And then there were offsetting minors after that, where it was you tripped the guy and you embellished. I've been seeing a lot of embellishment calls lately. Players don't like it. The way that I'm reading it is referees don't want to decide the game, so they just, we think you embellished a little bit, so you're going, and that way nobody gets a man advantage. That's at least how I read it. The face-off violations, that's a whole other thing. Second period, early Predators power play, and they'd score on it. 2 teams not known for having great power plays, and tonight both of them did pretty well. Smith scores from Turris and Ekholm at 2:59. It was a nice goal for Craig Smith. That took him to 10 on the year. The shots were about 3-1 in favor of the Ducks at that point. And yet, even though they were tripling the Predators in shots, at least almost tripling, they were behind 2-1. And that's where it gets frustrating. It's not the first time that's happened to the Ducks this year. It normally happens to Nashville, so this had to feel kind of weird. The Ducks get a power play. It turned into a 5-on-3 with 28 seconds left on the first penalty. The first penalty ends, and when down 5-on-4, it's a shorthanded 2-on-1 break for the Predators, and Arvidsson just missed. Arvidsson should have and usually would put that one in the net. The puck's bouncing. He wasn't able to get it in there. So, what happens? Fowler would score from Getzlaf and Goodbranson at 12:34. That tied the game up. The Ducks got another power play, and hey, they scored on the power play. It's Sprong from Fowler and Henrique at 14:52. And the Ducks had a miserably bad power play coming into this, but the Predators have a bad penalty kill, so something's got to give. Then there's another Ducks power play. At this point, I know Nashville fans watching this would have been swearing and upset they stayed up this late for this. Henrique would score on that power play from Steele and Getzlaf at 17:22. And all of a sudden, it's 4-2. The momentum had completely swung in the favor of the Ducks to the point where Rowney hits the post in the last minute of that period. So it was all Ducks. And then in the third, it wasn't. Power play early for the Predators. Smith would score from Bonino and Grimaldi at 4 minutes and 13 seconds. The Predators nearly tied it at 5:35, and then they made up for that nearly at 6.5 minutes when Grimaldi scores from Yossi and Bonino. Rocco Grimaldi continues to be one of the best under-the-radar players in the National Hockey League. I know people try to talk about under-the-radar players, and they mention a household name. I'm talking about Rocco Grimaldi, a guy that nobody thinks a whole lot of unless you watch him regularly. And if you watch him regularly, and if you're a Predators fan, you know just how darn good he is. And he's kind of good in every area of the game. So he gets a goal and ties it. The Ducks had a power play late for too many men on the ice against Nashville. A timeout was called before that power play by the Ducks. They would not score on it. The interesting thing was, the Predators called everybody around before that penalty kill and went over strategy. The Ducks didn't even talk to their players. Coaches just called that timeout to make sure their players were rested for the power play and just let them deal with it on their own. In overtime, Grimaldi had a breakaway that was stopped. So while Gibson didn't have a great game, that was a fantastic save. And then Saros stopped Kasha. Now, I reported in a news of the day that Kasha had a bone bruise. Apparently, it must not be that bad. He's playing with it, which tells me it must be in his foot, not his ankle. So probably just really heavily bandaged or, some kind of a protector on his skate. It's got to be in the foot. We go to a shootout. The shootout goes on for a while before Getzlaf gets the winner. And I thought Ryan Getzlaf had the best game I've seen him play in months. He gets 3 assists tonight. He was really good. So the Ducks win it in a shootout 5-4. Their faint playoff hopes are still there. They jump to I think they're within 9 right now of Calgary. I think it's 9. But anyways, Saros saves 43 out of 47. I thought he played well despite the fact he allowed 4 goals. Gibson saved 21 out of 25. He eventually played well in the overtime. He had some shaky moments tonight. Something's up with Gibson. I don't know what it is, but he's not playing like himself right now. Shots in this game, 21-4 in the first period for Anaheim. Yeah. 15-10 Anaheim in the second. Both teams had 10 shots in the third period. And then in the overtime, 2 of the 3 shots were by the Nashville Predators. Shots were 47-26 in favor of Anaheim. Your 3 stars are Henrique, Getzlaf, and Craig Smith. Power plays 1 for 2 for Nashville. Anaheim 2 for 5. So once again, you're caught up on your 5 games. And in the Boston video today, I said thumped. THUMPED. That being said, thank you guys so much for your support and for watching today. We have 4 games tomorrow. It's a bit of a lighter day. Hopefully I'll have time to do some fun stuff. I've got like an all-star-ish type thing to do tomorrow where I'm going to talk about the AHL All-Star Game because it's fascinating and I don't think it gets enough attention. The NHL All-Star Game is going to get plenty of attention between now and the All-Star break. And I'm kind of excited too because as we get into the All-Star break, that's when teams are having their bye weeks. So it's going to be a nice quiet week. We're, of course, going to be traveling that week, and it means that it should free me up some time to do some really fun list stuff, and maybe somewhere around California, but that's something we'll talk about in that video. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It means a ton. I will talk to you again very soon, and hey, if you're new or if you're just browsing your way through, hit like and subscribe. It's been a very popular thing to do over the last couple of weeks, and I'd like to see that become a tradition once again. Thank you guys for your time, your attention, and I'll talk to you again soon.